Every man's happiness is his own responsibility. Leave nothing for tomorrow which can be done today. I will prepare, and someday my chance will come. You cannot escape the responsibility of tomorrow by evading it today. Whatever you are, be a good one. Those who look for the bad in people will surely find it. Better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak out and remove all doubt. Most folks are as happy as they make up their minds to be. My best friend is a person who will give me a book I have not read. When I do good, I feel good. When I do bad, I feel bad. That's my religion. Whenever I hear anyone arguing for slavery, I feel a strong impulse to see it tried on him personally. I would rather be a little nobody than to be an evil somebody. I'm a success today because I had a friend who believed in me, and I didn't have the heart to let him down. Do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends? My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with your failure. I do not think much of a man who is not wiser today than he was yesterday. I am a firm believer in the people. If given the truth, they can be depended upon to meet any national crisis. The great point is to bring them the real facts. He has a right to criticize who has a heart to help. I laugh because I must not cry. That is all. That is all. That some achieve great success is proof to all that others can achieve it as well. The best thing about the future is that it comes one day at a time. Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power. I do the very best I know how, the very best I can, and I mean to keep on doing so until the end. Books serve to show a man that those original thoughts of his aren't very new at all. I will prepare, and someday my chance will come. Nations do not die from invasion, they die from internal rottenness. We the people are the rightful masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert the Constitution. America will never be destroyed from the outside. If we falter and lose our freedoms, it will be because we destroyed ourselves. The most reliable way to predict the future is to create it. You must remember that some things legally right are not morally right. Sir, my concern is not whether God is on our side. My greatest concern is to be on God's side, for God is always right. We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses. It is a sin to be silent when it is your duty to protest. You cannot help the poor by destroying the rich. You cannot lift the wage earner by pulling down the wage payer. Behind the cloud the sun is still shining. Those who are ready to sacrifice freedom for security ultimately will lose both. Don't interfere with anything in the Constitution. That must be maintained, for it is the only safeguard of our liberties. If you trust, you will be disappointed occasionally, but if you mistrust, you will be miserable all the time. Elections belong to the people. It's their decision. If they decide to turn their back on the fire and burn their behinds, then they will just have to sit on their blisters. Commitment is what transforms a promise into reality. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years. A statesman is he who thinks in the future generations, and a politician is he who thinks in the upcoming elections. The best way to destroy an enemy is to make him a friend. You can tell the greatness of a man by what makes him angry. To stand in silence when they should be protesting makes cowards of men. A day spent helping no one but yourself is a day wasted. A nation that does not honor its heroes will not long endure. You cannot fail unless you quit. Discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. If we exchange $1, we both have $1 each. But if we exchange one good thought, we both have two good thoughts. Nothing is stronger than gentleness. Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves. If there is anything that links the human to the divine, it is the courage to stand by a principle when everybody else rejects it. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. It often requires more courage to dare to do right than to fear to do wrong. Faith is not believing that God can, but that God will. You cannot have the right to do what is wrong. I believe the Bible is the best gift God has ever given to man. All the good from the Savior of the world is communicated to us through this book. Let the people know the truth, and the country is safe. Freedom is not the right to do what we want, but what we ought. Violence begins where knowledge ends. We seek not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow those who would pervert it. Every man is born an original, but sadly, most men die copies. When arguing with a fool, make sure the opponent isn't doing the exact same thing. Be with a leader when he is right, stay with him when he is still right, but leave him when he is wrong. Teach the children so it will not be necessary to teach the adults. Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. If this country is ever demoralized, it will come from trying to live without work. Kindness is the only service that will stand the storm of life and not wash out. Always bear in mind that your own resolution to succeed is more important than any other. If you understand what you're doing, you're not learning anything. When you make it to the top, turn and reach down for the person behind you. If you have never failed, you have never lived. Character is like a tree and reputation like a shadow. The shadow is what we think of it. The tree is the real thing. Whatever you are, be a good one. The ballot is stronger than the bullet. You can't make a weak man strong by making a strong man weak. History is not history unless it is the truth. A friend is one who has the same enemies as you have. The worst thing you can do for those you love is the things they could and should do themselves. 2 of my favorite things are sitting on my front porch smoking a pipe of sweet hemp and playing my Hohner harmonica. I am an optimist because I don't see the point in being anything else. Nothing in this world is impossible to a willing heart. Every man's happiness is his own responsibility. Any society that takes away from those most capable and gives to the least will perish. Be sure you put your feet in the right place, then stand firm. There are no bad pictures, that's just how your face looks sometimes. I have always found that mercy bears richer fruits than strict justice. Prosperity is the fruit of labor. It begins with saving money. No man ever got lost on a straight road. Honor is better than honors. I would rather be assassinated than see a single star removed from the American flag. No man is good enough to govern another man without the other's consent. No man has a good enough memory to be a successful liar. I will do what I think is right, and when I discover that it is wrong, I will change it. Democracy is government of, by, and for the people. What are you gonna do for a face when the baboon wants his ass back? The probability that we may fail in the struggle ought not to deter us from the support of a cause we believe to be just. I walk slowly, but never backwards. If slavery is not wrong, nothing is wrong. Leave nothing for tomorrow which can be done today. What is conservatism? Is it not the adherence to the old and tried against the new and untried? Achievement has no color. Study the Constitution. Let it be preached from the pulpit, proclaimed in legislatures, and enforced in courts of justice. Don't worry when you are not recognized, but strive to be worthy of recognition. Congressmen who willfully take action during wartime that damages morale and undermine the military are saboteurs and should be arrested, exiled, or hung. Don't judge a man by the size of his ego or his heart, but on the epicness of his beard and the beautiful woman on his arm. I see a very dark cloud on America's horizon, and that cloud is coming from Rome. Always remember, life is for enjoying. You cannot help small men by tearing down big men. The philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation will be the philosophy of government in the next. I have two great enemies, the Southern Army in front of me and the bankers in the rear. Of the two, the one at my rear is my greatest foe. How many legs does a dog have if you call the tail a leg? Thor, calling a tail a leg doesn't make it a leg. We cannot but believe that he who made the world still governs it. You can't help the poor by being one of them. I do not boast that God is on my side. I humbly pray that I am on God's side. I am not in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office. You have to do your own growing no matter how tall your grandfather was. The trouble with too many people is they believe the realm of truth always lies within their vision. No country can sustain, in idleness, more than a small percentage of its numbers. The great majority must labor at something productive. Teach hope to all, despair to none. The strength of a nation lies in the homes of its people. I had been told I was on the road to hell, but I had no idea it was just a mile down the road with a dome on it. Marriage is neither heaven nor hell, it is simply purgatory. Nothing valuable can be lost by taking time. What kills a skunk is the publicity it gives itself. Teach economy. That is one of the first and highest virtues. It begins with saving money. Nothing is more damaging to you than to do something that you believe is wrong. Tell the truth and you won't have so much to remember. Wanting to work is so rare a merit that it should be encouraged. I like to see a man proud of the place in which he lives. I like to see a man live so that his place will be proud of him. I know that the Lord is always on the side of the right, but it is my constant anxiety and prayer that I and this nation should be on the Lord's side. Let no feeling of discouragement prey upon you, and in the end you are sure to succeed. Important principles may and must be inflexible. Life is hard but so very beautiful. There's no honorable way to kill, no gentle way to destroy. There is nothing good in war except its ending. A house divided against itself cannot stand. Our attitude is more honest and more consistent than our words. If once you forfeit the confidence of your fellow citizens, you can never regain their respect and esteem. May the Almighty grant that the cause of truth, justice, and humanity shall in no wise suffer at my hands. You know you've reached middle age when all you exercise is caution. I think that God means that we shall do more than we have yet done in furtherance of His plans, and He will open the way for our doing it. I am busily engaged in the study of the Bible. I believe it is God's Word because it finds me where I am. You can have anything you want if you want it badly enough. There is no greater injustice than to wring your profits from the sweat of another man's brow. Next to creating a life, the finest thing a man can do is save one. By all means, don't say, "If I can," say, "I will." Hypocrite, the man who murdered his parents and then pleaded for mercy on the grounds that he was an orphan. It is a pleasure to be able to quote lines to fit any occasion. It has been my experience that folks who have no vices have very few virtues. If friendship is your weakest point, then you are the strongest person in the world. You can always lie to others and hide your actions from them, but you cannot fool yourself. I say try. If we never try, we shall never succeed. Let us diligently apply the means, never doubting that a just God, in His own good time, will give us the rightful result. That some achieve great success is proof to all that others can achieve it as well. If any man tells you he loves America, yet hates labor, he is a liar. If any man tells you he trusts America, yet fears labor, he is a fool. Elections belong to the people. It's their decision. We live in the midst of alarms. Anxiety beclouds the future. We expect some new disaster with each newspaper we read. I am rather inclined to silence, and whether that be wise or not, it is at least more unusual nowadays to find a man who can hold his tongue than to find one who cannot. The struggle of today is not altogether for today, it is for a vast future also. The Bible is not my book and Christianity is not my religion. I could never give assent to the long, complicated statements of Christian dogma. Determine that the thing can and shall be done and then find the way. We should be too big to take offense and too noble to give it. Freedom is the last, best hope of earth. The Almighty has His own purposes. If you love something, set it free. Let us renew our trust in God and go forward without fear. I do not think I could myself be brought to support a man for office whom I knew to be an open enemy of and scoffer at religion. Education does not mean teaching people what they do not know. It means teaching them to behave as they do not behave. A new book is like a friend that I have yet to meet. I have stepped out upon this platform that I may see you and that you may see me, and in the arrangement I have the best of the bargain. Most people are as happy as they want to be. There is another old poet whose name I do not now remember who said, "Truth is the daughter of time." Anxiety beclouds the future. The written word may be man's greatest invention. It allows us to converse with the dead, the absent, and the unborn. One is a majority if he is right. To ease another's heartache is to forget one's own. I am very little inclined on any occasion to say anything unless I hope to produce some good by it. Human action can be modified to some extent, but human nature cannot be changed. If I am killed, I can die by once, but to live in constant dread of it is to die over and over again. Stand with anybody that stands right, stand with him while he is right, and part with him when he goes wrong. I am not bound to win, but I am bound to be true. I am not bound to succeed, but I am bound to live up to what light I have. We must not promise what we ought not, lest we be called on to perform what we cannot. I care not much for a man's religion whose dog and cat are not the better for it. When you have got an elephant by the hind legs and he is trying to run away, it's best to let him run. I am struggling to maintain the government, not to overthrow it. I am struggling especially to prevent others from overthrowing it. That some should be rich shows that others may become rich, and, hence, is just encouragement to industry and enterprise. You have confidence in yourself, which is valuable, if not an indispensable quality. Why don't I drink from a straw? Because straws are for suckers. Without the assistance of that divine being, I cannot succeed. With that assistance, I cannot fail. The leading rule for a man of every calling is diligence. Never put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Well, I wish some of you would tell me the brand of whiskey that Grant drinks. I would like to send a barrel of it to my other generals. Killing the dog does not cure the bite. Friends, I agree with you in providence, but I believe in the providence of the most men, the largest purse, and the longest cannon. I am now the most miserable man living. If what I feel were felt by the whole human race, there would not be one cheerful face left on earth. My paramount objective in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not to either save or destroy slavery. Allow me to assure you that suspicion and jealousy never did help any man in any situation. If by the mere force of numbers a majority should deprive a minority of any clearly written constitutional right, it might, in a moral point of view, justify revolution. We cannot escape history. Cling to liberty and right, battle for them, bleed for them, die for them, if need be, and have confidence in God. Do not destroy that immortal emblem of humanity, the Declaration of Independence. Let's have faith that right makes might, and in that faith let us, to the end, dare to do our duty as we understand it. If there is anything that a man can do well, I say let him do it. Give him a chance. Our reliance is in the love of liberty which God has planted in our bosoms. We shall not fail if we stand firm. We shall not fail. Wise counsels may accelerate, or mistakes delay it, but sooner or later, the victory is sure to come. Am I not destroying my enemies when I make friends of them? It's time for me to go, but I would rather stay. Writing is the great invention of the world. I don't like that man. I must get to know him better. The people will save their government if the government itself will allow them. Common-looking people are the best in the world. That is the reason the Lord makes so many of them. Plural not at all. No man resolved to make the most of himself can spare time for personal contention. The time comes upon every public man when it is best for him to keep his lips closed. I fear explanations explanatory of things explained. Let every man remember that to violate the law is to trample on the blood of his father and to tear the character of his own and his children's liberty. Reduce the supply of black labor by colonizing the black laborer out of the country, and by precisely so much you increase the demand for and wages of white labor. Don't kneel to me, that is not right. You must kneel to God only and thank Him for the liberty you will hereafter enjoy. I have simply tried to do what seemed best each day, as each day came. But fight we must, and conquer we shall, in the end. The best way to get a bad law repealed is to enforce it strictly. Peace is a thing which a person must be willing to fight for. Character is the tree, reputation is the shadow. I have always believed that a good laugh was good for both the mental and physical digestion. There has never been but one question in all civilization how to keep a few men from saying to many men, "You work and earn bread, and we will eat it." If all men were just, there still would be some, though not so much, need of government. Republicans are for both the man and the dollar, but in case of conflict the man before the dollar. On the whole, my impression is that mercy bears richer fruits than any other attribute. I am in favor of animal rights as well as human rights. That is the way of a whole human being. I can make a general in 5 minutes, but a good horse is hard to replace. Half-finished work generally proves to be labor lost. We shall yet acknowledge his wisdom and our own error therein. Reputation is like fine china. Once broken, it's very hard to repair. The fiery trials through which we pass will light us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. I could not have slept tonight if I had left that helpless little creature to perish on the ground. If this is coffee, please bring me some tea. But if this is tea, please bring me some coffee. Laughter can be used to soothe the mind and get rid of those awful thoughts. Great men are ordinary men with extraordinary determination. It is difficult to make a man miserable while he feels worthy of himself and claims kindred to the great God who made him. I believe that people should fight for what they believe, and only what they believe. No state, upon its own mere motion, can lawfully get out of the Union. Plainly, the central idea of secession is the essence of anarchy. I shall adopt new views as fast as they shall appear to be true views. He who represents himself has a fool for a client. I don't know who my grandfather was. I am much more concerned to know what his grandson will be. Never do anything for anyone who can just as well do it themselves. My father taught me to work. He did not teach me to love it. In this sad world of ours, sorrow comes to all, and it comes with bitter agony. Perfect relief is not possible except with the passing of time. We know nothing of what will happen in future, but by the analogy of experience. Every man is said to have his peculiar ambition. Seriously, I do not think I am fit for the presidency. The only assurance of our nation's safety is to lay our foundation in morality and religion. All things desirable to men are contained in the Bible. We can succeed only by concert. It is not can any of us imagine better, but can we all do better? Public sentiment is everything. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. All my life I have tried to pluck a thistle and plant a flower wherever the flower would grow in thought and mind. Public opinion, though often formed upon a wrong basis, yet generally has a strong underlying sense of justice. I do, therefore, invite my fellow citizens to set apart and observe the last Thursday of November next as a day of thanksgiving and praise to our beneficent Father who dwelleth in the heavens. Intelligence, patriotism, Christianity, and a firm reliance on Him, who has never yet forsaken this favored land, are still competent to adjust, in the best way, all our present difficulty. And having thus chosen our course, without guile and with pure purpose, let us renew our trust in God, and go forward without fear and with manly hearts. When I get ready to talk to people, I spend 2/3 of the time thinking what they want to hear, and 1/3 thinking about what I want to say. I will either be America's greatest president or its last. Be not deceived. Revolutions do not go backward. We hope all danger may be overcome, but to conclude that no danger may ever arise would itself be extremely dangerous. I'm a slow walker, but I never walk back. He can compress the most words into the smallest ideas of any man I ever met. Every head should be cultivated. Force is all-conquering, but its victories are short-lived. As we keep or break the Sabbath day, we nobly save or meanly lose the last best hope by which man rises. The better part of one's life consists of his friendships. I am in favor of a national bank. I in favor of the internal improvement system and a high protective tariff. These men ask for just the same thing, fairness, and fairness only. This, so far as in my power, they and all others shall have. The Bible says somewhere that we are desperately selfish. I think we would have discovered that fact without the Bible. With firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right. Friendship is the start for what you call love. A capacity and taste for reading gives access to whatever has already been discovered by others. Labor is the great source from which nearly all, if not all, human comforts and necessities are drawn. You dislike the Emancipation Proclamation and, perhaps, would have it retracted. You say it is unconstitutional. I think differently. I trust that as He shall further open the way, I will be ready to walk therein, relying on His help and trusting in His goodness and wisdom. As an individual who undertakes to live by borrowing soon finds his original means devoured by interest, and next no one left to borrow from, so must it be with a government. I intend no modification of my oft expressed wish that all men everywhere could be free. As I would not be a slave, so I would not be a master. This expresses my idea of democracy. Free labor has the inspiration of hope. Pure slavery has no hope. Every person is responsible for his own looks after 40. Our progress in degeneracy appears to me to be pretty rapid. He who sees cruelty and does nothing about it is himself cruel. If you would win a man to your cause, first convince him that you are his sincere friend. One's only security in life comes from doing something uncommonly well. A man has not the time to spend half his life in quarrels. If any man ceases to attack me, I never remember the past against him. All true wisdom is found on T-shirts. The only person who is a worse liar than a faith healer is his patient. Our political problem now is, can we as a nation continue together permanently, forever, half slave and half free? As president, I have no eyes but constitutional eyes. I cannot see you. I have never had a feeling politically that did not spring from the sentiments embodied in the Declaration of Independence. I expect to maintain this contest until successful, or till I die, or am conquered, or my term expires, or Congress or the country forsakes me. The things I want to know are in books. My best friend is the man who will get me a book I ain't read. When I hear a man preach, I like to see him act as if he were fighting bees. Get books, sit yourself down anywhere, and go to reading them yourself. Whenever there is a conflict between human rights and property rights, human rights must prevail. With malice towards none, with charity for all. I could write shorter sermons, but when I get started, I'm too lazy to stop. Everyone likes a good quote. Don't forget to share. One company can serve some of your needs all of the time, or all of your needs some of the time, but never both. What is to be, will be, and no prayers of ours can arrest the decree. A prohibition law strikes a blow at the very principles upon which our government was founded. I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. No matter how much cats fight, there always seem to be plenty of kittens. His argument is as thin as the homeopathic soup that was made by oiling the shadow of a pigeon that had been starved to death. The human mind is impelled to action or held in rest by some power over which the mind itself has no control. Love is the chain whereby to bind a child to its parents. We must work earnestly in the best light He gives us. Men are not flattered by being shown that there has been a difference of purpose between the Almighty and them. I was raised to farm work. No man is poor who has a godly mother. A child is a person who is going to carry on what you have started. The fate of humanity is in his hands. The political horizon looks dark and lowering, but the people, under providence, will set all right. Beware of rashness, but with energy and sleepless vigilance go forward and give us victories. Intoxicated with unbroken success, we have become too self-sufficient to feel the necessity of redeeming and preserving grace, too proud to pray to the God that made us. The loss of enemies does not compensate for the loss of friends. Man is not the only animal who labors, but he is the only one who improves his workmanship. All I have learned, I learned from books. There is really no crisis except an artificial one. If the great American people will only keep their temper on both sides of the line, the trouble will come to an end. There is no America without labor, and to fleece the one is to rob the other. All that I am, or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. I believe the Bible is the best gift God has ever given to man. The purposes of the Almighty are perfect and must prevail, though we erring mortals may fail to accurately perceive them in advance. As a general rule, I abstain from reading reports of attacks upon myself, wishing not to be provoked by that to which I cannot properly offer an answer. Lincoln called laughter the joyous, beautiful, universal evergreen of life. Better give your path to a dog than be bitten by him in contesting for the right. Even killing the dog would not cure the bite. If there is a worse place than hell, I am in it. Hold on with a bulldog grip and chew and choke as much as possible. Towering genius disdains a beaten path. It seeks regions hitherto unexplored. Such will be a great lesson of peace, teaching men that what they cannot take by an election, neither can they take it by war. Surely God would not have created such a being as man, with an ability to grasp the infinite, to exist only for a day. No, man was made for immortality. It is the man who does not want to express an opinion whose opinion I want. Care for him who shall have borne the battle. Labor is the true standard of value. As a peacemaker, the lawyer has superior opportunity of being a good man. Don't pray that God's on our side, pray that we're on his side. Among free men there can be no successful appeal from the ballot to the bullet. With high hope for the future, no prediction is ventured. With the fearful strain that is on me night and day, if I did not laugh I should die. I am not concerned that you have fallen, I am concerned that you arise. In times like the present, men should utter nothing for which they would not willingly be responsible through time and eternity. Avoid popularity if you would have peace. Truth is generally the best vindication against slander. I must keep some standard of principle fixed within myself. All creation is a mine, and every man a miner. If we have no friends, we have no pleasure, and if we have them, we are sure to lose them, and be doubly pained by the loss. The health you enjoy is largely your choice. God is the silent partner in all great enterprises. Law is nothing else but the best reason of wise men applied for ages to the transactions and business of mankind. Everybody appreciates a compliment. This human struggle and scramble for office, for a way to live without work, will finally test the strength of our institutions. Military glory, that attractive rainbow, that rises in showers of blood, that serpent's eye, that charms to destroy. A lawyer's time and advice are his stock in trade. Surely he intends some great good to follow this mighty convulsion, which no mortal could make, and no mortal could stay. But for that book, we could not know right from wrong. It's not me who can't keep a secret, it's the people I tell that can't. I was losing interest in politics when the repeal of the Missouri Compromise aroused me again. What I have done since then is pretty well known. The way for a young man to rise is to improve himself in every way he can, never suspecting that anybody wishes to hinder him. The only security a man can ever have is the ability to do a job uncommonly well. A noble spirit embiggens the smallest man. My experience has taught me that a man who has no vices has damned few virtues. The best way to get rid of your enemies is to make them your friends. Discourage litigation, persuade your neighbors to compromise whenever you can. I want it said of me by those who knew me best that I always plucked a thistle and planted a flower where I thought a flower would grow. All that harms labor is treason to America. I cannot imagine anyone looking at the sky and denying God. I am for those means which will give the greatest good to the greatest number. My dream is of a place and a time where America will once again be seen as the last best hope of earth. It behooves us then to humble ourselves before the offended power, to confess our national sins, and to pray for clemency and forgiveness. In regard to this great book, I have but to say, it is the best gift God has given to man. Nothing new here except my marrying, which to me is a matter of profound wonder. I do the very best I know how, the very best I can, and I mean to keep on doing so until the end. The eyes of that species of extinct giant, whose bones fill the mounds of America, have gazed on Niagara as our eyes do now. I dared not trust the case on the presumption that the court knows everything. In fact, I argued it on the presumption that the court didn't know anything. It is my pleasure that my children are free and happy and unrestrained by parental tyranny. Love is the chain whereby to bind a child to its parents. The surest way to reveal one's character is not through adversity, but by giving them power. So viewing the issue, no choice was left but to call out the war power of the government, and so to resist force employed for its destruction, by force for its preservation. Let reverence for the laws become the political religion of the nation. Why should there not be a patient confidence in the ultimate justice of the people? Is there any better or equal hope in the world? In great contests, each party claims to act in accordance with the will of God. Both may be, and one must be wrong. Don't be fooled. I kept all my workout clothes in that top hat. I am for each individual doing just as he chooses in all matters which concern nobody else. The strongest bond of human sympathy outside the family relation should be one uniting working people of all nations and tongues and kindreds. The highest art is always the most religious, and the greatest artist is always a devout person. 'Tis better people think you a fool than open your mouth and erase all doubt. The privilege of creating and issuing money is not only the supreme prerogative of government, but it is the government's greatest creative opportunity. The world has agreed that labor is the source from which human wants are mainly supplied. There is no dispute upon this point. War, at the best, is terrible, and this war of ours, in its magnitude and in its duration, is one of the most terrible. My father taught me to work, but not to love it. I never did like to work, and I don't deny it. I'd rather read, tell stories, crack jokes, talk, laugh, anything but work. The land-grant university system is being built on behalf of the people who have invested in these public universities their hopes, their support, and their confidence. The sense of obligation to continue is present in all of us. A duty to strive is the duty of us all. I felt a call to that duty. The Bible is not my book, nor Christianity my profession. I could never give assent to the long, complicated statements of Christian dogma. My policy is to have no policy. I will learn, the opportunity will come. When the white man governs himself, that is self-government. But when he governs himself and also governs another man, that is more than self-government, that is despotism. The trouble with Hooker is that he's got his headquarters where his hindquarters ought to be. In law, it is good policy to never plead what you need not, lest you oblige yourself to prove what you cannot. Now I confess myself as belonging to that class in the country who contemplate slavery as a moral, social, and political evil. Adhere to your purpose and you will soon feel as well as you ever did. On the contrary, if you falter and give up, you will lose the power of keeping any resolution and will regret it all your life. If I gave McClellan all the men he asked for, they could not find room to lie down. They'd have to sleep standing up. Let us do nothing through passion and ill temper. The blessing always comes back to the door of the author. Property is the fruit of labor. Property is desirable. It is a positive good. Always let your subordinates know that the honor will be all theirs if they succeed, and the blame will be yours if they fail. The worst thing you can do for anyone you care about is anything that they can do on their own. Believing everybody is dangerous, but believing nobody is more dangerous. In the present civil war, it is quite possible that God's purpose is something different from the purpose of either party. I claim not to have controlled events, but confess plainly that events have controlled me. My old father used to have a saying, if you make a bad bargain, hug it all the tighter. I am greatly obliged to you and to all who have come forward at the call of their country. I have an irrepressible desire to live till I can be assured that the world is a little better for my having lived in it. Certainly there is no contending against the will of God, but still there is some difficulty in ascertaining and applying it to particular cases. The man does not live who is more devoted to peace than I am, none who would do more to preserve it. A tendency to melancholy ... let it be observed, is a misfortune, not a fault. I know not how to aid you, save in the assurance of one of mature age and much severe experience, that you cannot fail if you resolutely determine that you will not. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. Fondly do we hope, fervently do we pray, that this mighty scourge of war may speedily pass away. I sincerely wish war was a pleasanter and easier business than it is, but it does not admit of holidays. Gold is good in its place, but living, brave, patriotic men are better than gold. Politics, as a trade, finds most and leaves nearly all dishonest. Government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. I can make more generals, but horses cost money. Let us strive on to finish the work we are in. In giving freedom to the slave, we assure freedom to the free. Destroy your enemy by making him your friend. These capitalists generally act harmoniously and in concert to fleece the people. It will not do to investigate the subject of religion too closely, as it is apt to lead to infidelity. The man who stands by and says nothing when the peril of his government is discussed cannot be misunderstood. If not hindered, he is sure to help the enemy. Ballots are the rightful and peaceful successors of bullets, and that when ballots have fairly and constitutional why decided, there can be no successful appeal back to bullets. Ready are we all to cry out and ascribe motives when our toes are pinched. I can't spare this man, he fights. Think of strangers as friends you not met yet. We must ask where we are and whither we are tending. It is for us and our time ... to say the right makes might. I confess I hate to see the poor creatures hunted down, but I bite my lip and keep quiet. I am not bound to win, but I am bound to be true. When you lack interest in the case, the job will very likely lack skill and diligence in the performance. The will of God prevails. I have no wealthy or popular relations to recommend me. Everyone desires to live long, but no one would be old. It is not the qualified voters, but the qualified voters who choose to vote that constitute political power. Tangible language, which often tells more falsehoods than truths. In my entire life I have only met 4 perfect people, and I dislike them all. I never trusted a man who never smoked or drank. Too big to cry, too young to laugh. If you want your name to be remembered after your death, either do something worth writing or write something worth reading. It is not as God on my side, but am I on God's side? There is nothing good in war except its ending. What constitutes the bulwark of our own liberty and independence? All the armies of Europe combined could not by force make a track upon the Blue Ridge or take a drink from the Ohio. If we are to be destroyed, we must do it ourselves. I cannot think that we are useless or God would not have created us. If you are going to fight, don't let them talk you into negotiating. But if you are going to negotiate, don't let them talk you into fighting. That everyone may receive at least a moderate education appears to be an objective of vital importance. The cause of civil liberty must not be surrendered at the end of 1 or even 100 defeats. The occasion is piled high with difficulty. We must rise to the occasion. The power of hope upon human exertion and happiness is wonderful. The press has no better friend than I am, no one who is more ready to acknowledge its tremendous power for both good and evil. I hold that while a man exists, it is his duty to improve not only his own condition, but to assist in ameliorating mankind. A man's legs must be long enough to reach the ground. Without divine assistance I cannot succeed, with it I cannot fail. I think the authors of that notable instrument intended to include all men. My politics are short and sweet, like the old woman's dance. If the good people and their wisdom shall see fit to keep me in the background, I have been too familiar with disappointments to be very much chagrined. While the people retain their virtue and vigilance, no administration, by any extreme of wickedness or folly, can very seriously injure the government in the short space of 4 years. It has been said of the world's history hitherto that might makes right. It is for us and for our time to reverse the maxim and to say that right makes might. Public opinion in this country is everything. Were it not for my little jokes, I could not bear the burdens of this office. The leading rule for the lawyer, as for the man of every other calling, is diligence. Leave nothing for tomorrow which can be done today. We trust, sir, that God is on our side. It is more important to know that we are on God's side. Writing, the art of communicating thoughts to the mind through the eye, is the great invention of the world. You are ambitious, which, within reasonable bounds, does good rather than harm. I happen temporarily to occupy this big white house. I am living witness that any one of your children may look to come here as my father's child has. My God, what will the country say? Someday I shall be president. A man is about as happy as he makes up his mind to be. I have endured a great deal of ridicule without much malice, and have received a great deal of kindness, not quite free from ridicule. I am used to it. Every blade of grass is a study, and to produce two, where there was but one, is both a profit and a pleasure. I believe this government cannot endure, permanently half slave and half free. The people themselves, and not their servants, can safely reverse their own deliberate decisions. A woman is the only thing I am afraid of that I know will not hurt me. The working men are the basis of all governments, for the plain reason that they are the most numerous. The greatest fine art of the future will be the making of a comfortable living from a small piece of land. Women are the only people I am afraid of who I never thought would hurt me. If you are resolutely determined to make a lawyer of yourself, the thing is more than half done already. I shall always think of myself first and foremost as a hunter. And I am glad to know that there is a system of labor where the laborer can strike if he wants to. I would to God that such a system prevailed all over the world. It is your business to rise up and preserve the union and liberty for yourselves, and not for me. I desire they shall be constitutionally preserved. If I were two-faced, would I be wearing this one? Tact is the ability to describe others as they see themselves. I never had a policy. I have just tried to do my very best each and every day. Don't criticize them. They are just what we would be under similar circumstances. I destroy my enemy if I make him my friend. It is safe to assert that no government proper ever had a provision in its organic law for its own termination. There is something so ludicrous in promises of good or threats of evil a great way off as to render the whole subject with which they are connected easily turned into ridicule. Ballots are the rightful and peaceful successors to bullets. Money will cease to be master and become the servant of humanity. Democracy will rise superior to the money power. I can only say that I have acted upon my best convictions without selfishness or malice, and that by the help of God I shall continue to do so. Everybody likes a compliment. My faith in the proposition that each man should do precisely as he pleases with all which is exclusively his own lies at the foundation of the sense of justice there is in me. Character is like a tree, and reputation is like its shadow. Money powers prey upon the nation in times of peace and conspire against it in times of adversity. Have I not destroyed my enemy when I have made him into my friend? If a man will stand up and assert, and repeat and reassert, that 2 and 2 do not make 4, I know nothing in the power of argument that can stop him. Don't swap horses in the middle of the stream. We accepted this war for an object, a worthy object, and the war will end when that object is attained. Under God, I hope it never will until that time. It is much easier to ride a horse in the direction it is going. Human nature will not change. The people, when rightly and fully trusted, will return the trust. We all declare for liberty, but in using the same word, we do not all mean the same thing. When met with a problem, I always ask myself what is the right thing to do, and then I do it. When I go hear a man speak, I like to hear him speak like he's fighting a swarm of bees. He who molds the public sentiment makes statutes and decisions possible or impossible to make. I am satisfied that when the Almighty wants me to do or not do any particular thing, He finds a way of letting me know it. A nation may be said to consist of its territory, its people, and its laws. The territory is the only part which is of certain durability. Work, work, work is the main thing. I am glad to see that a system of labor prevails under which laborers can strike when they want to. Every man has a right to be equal with every other man. Your organization will take on the personality of its top leaders. I am a moderate walker, however I never stroll back. Lonely men seek companionship. Lonely women sit at home and wait. They never meet. Committee, a group which succeeds in getting something done only when it consists of 3 members, one of whom happens to be sick and another absent. Must a government be too strong for the liberties of its people or too weak to maintain its own existence? It has long been recognized that the problems with alcohol relate not to the use of a bad thing, but to the abuse of a good thing. Remembering that Peter denied his Lord with an oath, after most solemnly protesting that he never would, I will not swear I will make no committals, but I do think I will not. Again, a law may be both constitutional and expedient, and yet may be administered in an unjust and unfair way. I freely acknowledge myself the servant of the people, according to the bond of service, the United States Constitution, and that, as such, I am responsible to them. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. If I had my way, this war would never have been commenced. If I had been allowed my way, this war would have been ended before this. Bring me Longstreet's head on a platter and the war will be over. I hope to stand firm enough to not go backward, and yet not go forward fast enough to wreck the country's cause. Your rights end where my nose begins. To lead, you must touch men's hearts. Everybody likes compliment. Do you think we choose the times into which we are born, or do we fit the times we are born into? If I were to try to read, much less answer, all the attacks made on me, this shop might as well be closed for any other business. As our case is new, so we must think anew and act anew. Nothing will divert me from my purpose. If they do kill me, I shall never die another death. Our government rests in public opinion. Whoever can change public opinion can change the government, practically just so much. I couldn't be two-faced. If I had 2 faces, I wouldn't wear this one. If elected, I shall be thankful. If not, it will be all the same. You know I dislike slavery, and you fully admit the abstract wrong of it. There is nothing true anywhere. The true is nowhere to be seen. If you say you see the true, this seeing is not the true one. You cannot fail in any laudable object unless you allow your mind to be improperly directed. Towering genius disdains a beaten path. It scorns to tread in the footsteps of any predecessor, however illustrious. It thirsts for distinction. Without slavery, the rebellion could never have existed. Without slavery, it could not continue. If you intend to go to work, there is no better place than right where you are. If you do not intend to go to work, you cannot get along anywhere. How many times have I laughed at you telling me plainly that I was too lazy to be anything but a lawyer? A long visit to a friend is often a great bore. Never make people twice glad. Be excellent and party on dudes. A jury too often has at least one member more ready to hang the panel than to hang the traitor. The very spot where grew the bread that formed my bones, I see, how strange, old field, on thee to tread, and feel I'm part of thee. Adversity does not make us frail, it only shows us how frail we are. Money possesses no value to the state other than that given to it by circulation. With the catching ends the pleasure of the chase. Confused and stunned, like a duck hit on the head. It's bad, it's damned bad. I failed, and that is about all that can be said about it. I know the hole he went in at, but I can't tell you what hole he will come out of. As a nation, we began by declaring that all men are created equal. We now practically read it, all men are created equal except Negroes. I don't suppose anybody on earth likes gingerbread better than I do, and gets less than I do. Whatever spiteful fools may say, each jealous ranting yelper, no woman ever went astray without a man to help her. I do not understand that because I do not want a Negro woman for a slave, I must necessarily want her for a wife. My understanding is that I can just let her alone. All I ask for the Negro is that if you do not like him, let him alone. If God gave him but little, that little let him enjoy. The negative principle that no law is free law is not much known except among lawyers. Never change horses in midstream. Legislation and adjudication must follow and conform to the progress of society. I find quite as much material for a lecture in those points wherein I have failed as in those wherein I have been moderately successful. You already know I desire that neither father or mother shall be in want of any comfort either in health or sickness while they live. You must think I am a high-priced man. $15 is enough for the job. I send you a receipt for $15 and return to you a $10 bill. I am not an accomplished lawyer. You may have a wen or a cancer upon your person and not be able to cut it out lest you bleed to death, but surely it is no way accurate to engraft it and spread it over your whole body. Labor is the superior of capital and deserves much the higher consideration. Calling a tail a leg does not make it a leg. I have always hated slavery, I think as much as any abolitionist. People are just as happy as they choose to be. If you wish to win a man over to your ideas, first make him your friend. Bad promises are better broken than kept. This country, with its institutions, belongs to the people who inhabit it. We should avoid planting and cultivating too many thorns in the bosom of society. Suspicions which may be unjust need not be stated. I wish to see, in process of disappearing, that only thing which ever could bring this nation to civil war. I never knew a man who wished to be himself a slave. Consider, if you know any good thing, that no man desires for himself. It is bad to be poor. I shall go to the wall for bread and meat if I neglect my business this year as well as last. Thou, at the end of 3 years' struggle, the nation's condition is not what either party or any man devised or expected. God alone can claim it. In any future great national trial, compared with the men of this, we shall have as weak and as strong, as silly and as wise, as bad and good. A right result at this time will be worth more to the world than 10 times the men and 10 times the money. As to the whiskers, having never worn any, do you not think people would call it a piece of silly affectation if I were to begin it now? I am nothing, truth is everything. You say you will not fight to free Negroes. Some of them seem willing to fight for you, but no matter, fight you, then exclusively to save the Union. I am much indebted to the good Christian people of the country for their constant prayers and consolations, and to no one of them more than to yourself. The Lord spared the fitten, and the rest he seen fitten to die. Laman, that speech won't scour. It is a flat failure, and the people are disappointed. I think to lose Kentucky is nearly the same as to lose the whole game. I can make brigadier generals, but I can't make horses. In your hands, my dissatisfied fellow countrymen, and not in mine, is the momentous issue of civil war. You are green, it is true, but they are green also. You are all green alike. Did Stanton say I was a damned fool? Then I dare say I must be one, for Stanton is generally right, and he always says what he means. The world shall know that I will keep my faith to friends and enemies, come what will. I could not sleep when I got on the hunt for an idea until I had caught it. This was a kind of passion with me, and it has stuck with me. I think I stand where that man stands. The person who is incapable of making a mistake is incapable of anything. The plainest print cannot be read through a gold eagle. No policy that does not rest upon some philosophical public opinion can be permanently maintained. The people know their rights, and they are never slow to assert and maintain them when they are invaded. In order to win a man to your cause, you must first reach his heart, the great high road to his reason. I hear you have abolitionists here. We have a few in Illinois, but we shot one the other day. If any should be slaves, it should be first those who desire it for themselves, and secondly, those who desire it for others. The matter of fees is important, far beyond the mere question of bread and butter involved. Properly attended to, fuller justice is done to both lawyer and client. Kings had always been involving and impoverishing their people in wars, pretending generally, if not always, that the good of the people was the object. Honest statesmanship is the wise employment of individual meanness for the public good. Anybody will do for you, but not for me. If all do not join now to save the good old ship of the Union this voyage, nobody will have a chance to pilot her on another voyage. I cannot make it better known than it already is that I strongly favor colonization. Peace does not appear so distant as it did. I hope it will come soon, and come to stay, and so come as to be worth the keeping in all future time. I have come to the conclusion never again to think of marrying, and for this reason, I can never be satisfied with anyone who would be blockhead enough to have me. Thus let bygones be bygones, let past differences as nothing be. I believe that every individual is naturally entitled to do as he pleases with himself and the fruits of his labor, so far as it in no way interferes with any other men's rights. We want and must have a national policy as to slavery which deals with it as being wrong. If we could first know where we are and whither we are tending, we could then better judge what to do and how to do it. The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. I believe the declaration that all men are created equal is the great fundamental principle upon which our free institutions rest. It doesn't matter if you're a slow walker, so long as you don't walk backwards. To secure to each laborer the whole product of his labor, or as nearly as possible, is a worthy object of any good government. We shall meanly lose or nobly save the last hope of earth. The demon of intemperance ever seems to have delighted in sucking the blood of genius and of generosity. I hate it because of the monstrous injustice of slavery itself. I hate it because it deprives our Republican example of its just influence in the world. Let us at all times remember that all American citizens are brothers of a common country and should dwell together in bonds of fraternal feeling. I see in the near future a crisis approaching that unnerves me and causes me to tremble for the safety of my country. God cannot be for and against the same thing at the same time. One section of our country believes slavery is right and ought to be extended, while the other believes it is wrong and ought not to be extended. If we cannot give freedom to every creature, let us do nothing that will impose slavery upon any other creature. You can't escape tomorrow's responsibilities by evading it today. The principles of Jefferson are the definitions and axioms of free society. Weakness is what keeps driving us to God, by the overwhelming conviction that there just isn't anywhere else to go. I desire to see the time when education, and by its means, morality, sobriety, enterprise, and industry shall become much more general than at present. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. Great distance in either time or space has wonderful power to lull and render quiescent the human mind. The one victory we can ever call complete will be that one which proclaims that there is not one slave or one drunkard on the face of God's green earth. Never let your correspondence fall behind. Towering genius disdains a beaten path. I have got you together to hear what I have written down. I do not wish your advice about the main matter, for that I have determined for myself. We here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. I am always for the man who wishes to work. Never stir up litigation. A worse man can scarcely be found than one who does this. While we are grateful to all the brave men and officers for the events of the past few days, we should, above all, be very grateful to Almighty God, who gives us victory. God bless the soldiers and seamen with all their brave commanders. The love of property and consciousness of right and wrong have conflicting places in our organization, which often makes a man's course seem crooked, his conduct a riddle. No client ever had money enough to bribe my conscience or to stop its utterance against wrong and oppression. A universal feeling, whether well or ill-founded, cannot be safely disregarded. Familiarize yourself with the chains of bondage, and you prepare your own limbs to wear them. Our strife pertains to ourselves, to the passing generations of men, and it can without convulsion be hushed forever with the passing of one generation. Moral principle is a looser bond than pecuniary interest. We shall sooner have the fowl by hatching the egg than by smashing it. We cannot ask a man what he will do, and if we should, and he should answer us, we should despise him for it. Therefore we must take a man whose opinions are known. It must now atone in blood for its complicity in wickedness. When the hour comes for dealing with slavery, I trust I will be willing to do my duty though it cost my life. It is easiest to be all things to all men, but it is not honest. Self-respect must be sacrificed. day. I go for all sharing the privileges of the government who assist in bearing its burdens. As labor is the common burden of our race, so the effort of some to shift their share of the burden onto the shoulders of others is the great durable curse of the race. If both factions, or neither, shall abuse you, you will probably be about right. Beware of being assailed by one and praised by the other. If both factions, or neither, shall abuse you, you will probably be about right. Beware of being assailed by one and praised by the other. Others have been made fools of by the girls, but this can never be with truth said of me. I most emphatically, in this instance, made a fool of myself. The enthusiastic uprising of the people in our cause is our great reliance, and we cannot safely give it any check, even though it overflows and runs in channels not laid down in any chart. I want in all cases to do right. Our common country is in great peril, demanding the loftiest views and boldest action to bring it speedy relief. What has ever threatened our liberty and prosperity save and accept this institution of slavery? I wish all men to be free. I wish the material prosperity of the already free, which I feel sure the extinction of slavery would bring. The unpleasant events you are passing from will not have been profitless to you. My father, at the death of his father, was but 6 years of age, and he grew up, literally without education. The government will support you to the utmost of its ability, which is neither more nor less than it has done, and will do for all commanders. Now and ever I shall do all in my power for peace, consistently with the maintenance of government. Doubtless you begin to understand how disagreeable it is to me to do a thing arbitrarily, when it is unsatisfactory to others associated with me. I was elected a captain of volunteers, a success which gave me more pleasure than any I have had since. I cannot bring myself to believe that any human being lives who would do me any harm. You have more of a feeling of personal resentment than I have. Perhaps I have too little of it, but I never thought it paid. The best way to predict your future is to create it. Better to remain silent and thought a fool than to speak out and confirm that you didn't do the assigned readings before the strategic planning retreat. The Constitution is not a suicide pact. Towering genius thirsts and burns for distinction, and, if possible, it will have it, whether at the expense of emancipating slaves or enslaving freemen. Do I not damage my enemies after I make them my close friends? The damnedest scoundrel that ever lived, but in the infinite mercy of Providence, also the damnedest fool. Cortezas was art critic of the New York Herald Tribune. I always remember the prayers of my mother as they always forever. In all that people can do for themselves, government ought not to interfere. When you have got a ticket to send, and you're not a top costumer, it's best not to waste your time. No man has a right to judge Andrew Johnson in any respect who has not suffered as much and done as much as he for the nation's sake. When I lay down the reins of this administration, I want to have one friend left, and that friend is myself. To give victory to the right, not bloody bullets, but peaceful ballots only, are necessary. Some single mind must be master, else there will be no agreement in anything. This is a world of compensations, and he who would be no slave must consent to have no slave. My wife is as handsome as when she was a girl, and I fell in love with her, and what is more, I have never fallen out. I turn, then, and look to the American people and to that God who has never forsaken them. I understand that it is a maxim of law that a poor plea may be a good plea to a bad declaration. I shall be most happy indeed if I shall be an humble instrument in the hands of the Almighty and of this his almost chosen people. None seem to think the injury arose from the use of a bad thing, but from the abuse of a very good thing. What I want is to get done what the people desire to have done, and the question for me is how to find that out exactly. The power confided in me will be used to hold, occupy, and possess the property and places belonging to the government, and to collect the duties and imposts. Extemporaneous speaking should be practiced and cultivated. It is the lawyer's avenue to the public. The greatest lessons I have ever learned were at my mother's knees. All that I am, or hope to be, I owe to my angel mother. Why don't you laugh? If I did not laugh, I should die, and you need this medicine as much as I do. One generation passeth away, and another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever. He who does something at the head of one regiment will eclipse him who does nothing at the head of 100. Offering thanks in the midst of tragedy is an American tradition, even during a bloody civil war. Singular indeed, the people should be writhing under oppression and injury, and yet not one among them to be found, to raise the voice of complaint. Well, I suppose you know that men will stand a good deal when they are flattered. Capital has its rights, which are as worthy of protection as any other right. I have a congenital aversion to failure. I believe I shall never be old enough to speak without embarrassment when I have nothing to talk about. We meet this evening, not in sorrow, but in gladness of heart. Military necessity does not admit of cruelty, that is, the infliction of suffering for the sake of suffering or for revenge, nor of torture to extort confessions. I hold that in contemplation of universal law and of the Constitution, the union of these states is perpetual. I would like to speak in terms of praise due to the many brave officers and soldiers who have fought in the cause of the war. With this honor devolves upon you also a corresponding responsibility. As the country herein trusts you, so under God it will sustain you. The Father of waters again goes unvexed to the sea. It is a good face. I am glad this war is over at last. As the problems are new, we must disenthrall ourselves from the past. So you're the little woman who wrote the book that made this great war. Glory to God in the highest. Ohio has saved the nation. The solemn pride that must be yours to have laid so costly a sacrifice upon the altar of freedom. Nations like individuals are subjected to punishments and chastisements in this world. It is the quality of revolutions not to go by old lines or old laws, but to break up both and make new ones. Which quote did you like the most? Share your opinion in the comments. Don't miss out on a chance to see the next video. Subscribe.